トビデオ
Ever since art as a concept began, someone, somewhere, has always wanted to hold the funhouse mirror to it, to take a creation and distort it into something more humorous and irreverent. This practice has gone under many names and definitions: the spoof, the burlesque, the pastiche, the lampoon, the send-up, etc. But all of these fall under the single umbrella term of the practice's broadest definition: the parody.
I'm sick to death of that tune!
Originating in ancient Greece to describe lighthearted satirical epic poems or countersong under the name parodia, the parody is one of the longest lasting forms of a creative work. Any work of art that receives significant attention in the culture is bound to cause a parody to spring forth, sometimes to the point that the parody can outlast the subject it is lampooning.
Confound those Dover boys!
Parody is considered to be a natural development in the life cycle for any genre. If the conventions of a genre or medium will stick around long enough, those conventions become ripe for the send-ups. Said send-up can either be affectionate ribbing or satirical skewering. The parody has infected all mediums from literature, film, music, video games, and animation. Parody in anime was inevitable, and while it is definitely a far richer field thanks to the otaku generation, they only really began to become a thing in the 1980s, the decade where anime and even Japan's larger pop cultural footprint began to take hold. Japan's cultural industry is no longer the scrappy upstart coming out of the post-war era. It is now a colossal dynamo buoyed by a great economy with plenty of established tropes and trends that are ready for parody. This results in anime like this bad boy. In the not-so-distant future of Tokyo, a group called the Demon Seed has been terrorizing the city using mechanized mobile power suits as a means to rob with impunity. To counter this, the government has set up the Special Operations Anti-Demon Seed Team, a clandestine elite unit of just kidding. They are an understaffed, underfunded unit of the police that consists of 5 office schlubs whose office is on the 2nd floor of a video store.
情けねえと思わねえかおめえら。偉そうなのは肩書きだけで、その実徹底的完食、肩叩き要員。
With their limited manpower, firepower, and political power, the Anti-Demon Seed team don't actually get much done trying to stop the squadron of villains, only ineffectually yelling at them with a loudspeaker and investigating their crimes they failed to stop after the fact. This has the knock-on effect of their team having a massive PR problem since all they do is show up and do nothing while the evildoers trash the city and get away. The team needs 2 things: someone strong or skilled enough to fight back against Demon Seed's mecha miscreants and to improve their image in the public. And what better way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone than by getting an idol singer who can pilot a mecha.
予選なんかやったのか、服部君。なに、服部ならぬハッタリですよ。ことは急を要しますんでね、こちらで適当にピックアップしました。
In the ensuing talent competition, the team gets their princess in shining armor in the form of a 13-year-old girl named Mara Namikaze. And while she is extremely shy, she does have one one-of-a-kind trait.
興味がなかったんですけど、母と姉が勝手にはがきを出してしまって、で、行ってこいって強引に。
Now the Anti-Demon Seed team has a powerful weapon in their arsenal, in fact, perhaps the only weapon in their arsenal, and it's a preteen girl whom they must train in both the art of combat as well as the art of being a cute idol singer. Good luck, boyos, you're gonna need it.
むさ苦しい機動隊が出張ってきてだ。町に大損害を与えた挙句、デモンシードを取り逃がすのとな。奴らにも打撃を与え、なおかつ、それが可愛いマロンだったら、どっちが歓迎されるかは一目瞭然だろうが。
What the hell can you even say about 1989's assemble inserts? Named after the 2 main processes of editing video, assemble editing describing editing that is assembled one at a time in a linear sequential order, and insert editing, which is editing that inserts the new video over old video in a non-linear fashion. You don't really care about this, do you? Anyways, a symbol insert is a dusty obscurity that today would probably only be remembered for two things. One is an important historical connection, which we'll get into later, but two is that this was among one of Right Stuff's earliest titles that they brought over at the dawn of the new millennium. I would assume it's because they banked a lot on the name power of this anime staff. As much good as that did, because a simple insert was pretty quickly forgotten both here and its home country, and if it's ever brought up, it's usually as a footnote in other people's illustrious biographies. But considering the people attached to this little chestnut, there's gotta be something here, at least from a historical standpoint. And good news for us, that's the name of the game here. Let's insert ourselves into this anime's tale and assemble a compelling argument for its existence. When I gave that plot synopsis above, it sounded familiar, right? Special unit of the police at the whims of the government bureaucracy, formed to fight back against criminals using new mobilized mechanized suits to commit crimes, the central protagonist being a bright-eyed young Anjanun. A symbol insert comes to us from the mind of Masami Yuki, the original creator of the Mobile Suit Patlabor franchise. If you remember the History of Patlabor video I put out 3 years ago, that franchise was an idea Yuki had been hashing out for multiple years and multiple prototype pitches that went nowhere. In between polishing all those pitches, Yuki was still pursuing his career as a mangaka, and in 1985, he released a short 3-chapter manga called A Symbol Insert. Serialized in the bi-monthly magazine Aniparo Comics, published by Out, the A Symbol Insert manga is largely the same as the anime that would be adapted later, right down to the simplified art style. From the magazine scan I got, it seemed like Aniparo magazine specialized in this type of broad parody manga with lots of gags and characters that resemble more of newspaper comics than actual human beings. The story after the first chapter of A Symbol Insert is a brief Castle of Cagliostro parody. These types of comics were all over the manga landscape in the 80s, found in both official works and doujin comics, but they rarely, if at all, got anime adaptations. It wasn't unheard of, but if this style of parodic anime ever got an animated OVA adaptation, it usually was in the form of a special feature, or it had to have been something with a lot of action potential. So while studios may have been leaving no stone unturned trying to adapt prospective manga into OVAs during the 80s, they weren't exactly lining up to adapt these. But then a few years later, a windfall. Masami Yuki's little side project actually ends up happening thanks to a couple of friends of his starting a collective, and guess what? It's a massive success. So now studios are tearing the room apart to find any other Masami Yuki manga they could turn into another OVA. A Symbol Insert was that anime. Producing this anime would be the company Toho Konshinsha Film Corporation. They were a company that mostly served as a distributor for foreign film to Japan, but they're a big enough company that they've often wet their beak into bankrolling anime productions. Specifically, they've co-funded every single entry of the Patlabor franchise, not counting the first OVA series. So, of course, they were going to benefit the most from another Yuki adaptation. Primary production would be done at Studio Core. Nothing too special about them other than they are your typical workhorse secondary studio, and that Assembly Insert is their only primary planning and production credit they have to their name. In fact, more famous studios like Sunrise and Studio Dean ended up doing the finishing grunt work for this production. For the staff, it looked like they tried to recruit established creative minds from both the mecha and comedy sphere of anime. Not only was Masami Yuki kept on as character designer, but fellow Headgear member Yutaka Izubuchi was brought on as the mecha designer. Screenwriter was the late Michiru Shimada, who had tons of Urusei Yatsura and Dr. Slump scripts to her name, and the best of both worlds came in the form of director Ami Tomobuki. He was the principal animation director and character designer for the mecha OVA Del Power X, as well as being a storyboarder and episode director for the Armored Trooper Votom series. He would also eventually go on to get similar credits for the second Chie the Brat series, as if you need an example of his specific range. From a technical standpoint, it really is not as good as Patlabor. I think they took A Symbol Insert's more comedic focus into consideration when calculating the budgets and adjusted accordingly. You're not going to get anything too spectacular here, and a lot of the best animation this anime has is front-loaded in the opening. but it can still surprise you with some unnecessarily good camera work or some excellent fight choreography courtesy of Madon fist-fighting mechanized labor suits. But I don't think the animation's motion is the star of the show. That place is taken by Tomobuki's storyboarding and Yuki's own character designs. Tomobuki has a great eye for blocking comical scenes and will often load more visual jokes into them for greater hilarity. And you gotta like how Yuki translated his pared down cartoonish designs to screen by keeping them that. They really do work in making the jokes in the anime feel funnier. From Madon's doe-eyed innocence to the anti-Demon Seed team getting less expressive facial features as they go down assumed rank, which is why Captain Hattori, the leader, is the only one who looks like a human being. The comedy extends to the casting. There are some typical casting choices like having Chigao Osuka play the head of Demon Seed or Ichi Nagai playing the eccentric perverted old man professor, but the rest are smart subversions. Madon is considered a weak singer and dancer for idol standards, so her role is given to an actual professional idol singer, Hiroko Kazuhara.
セリフはまず正面に向かって
But the big casting gag is Captain Hattori's voice actor, giving him the voice of Norio Wakamoto, an actor known for playing authoritative villains, now reduced to a cynical government agent browbeaten by bureaucracy and budget cuts.
こっちからデモンシードを潰しに出かけるってのはどうでしょう。
アホかおめえは。奴らの居所が分かったら今こうしてお暇などしてねえ。
なるほど。そういうこともありますね。
A lot of the nuance doesn't really carry over to the English dub as you would expect. If anything, this dub is carried by Jessica Calvello as Madon, giving a great performance as a gentle, naive little soul.
Let's see. My first line is, oh, well, first I have to face front.
You'll do fine, just fine. You trained a lot, remember?
You think so?
The rest, however, feel flat in their performances, and I think there was an attempt to make the humor read funnier for English audiences by directing some of the actors to do, for lack of a better term, Muppet Show voices.
5 times since this morning. She looks pretty nervous, huh?
But what are you going to do with this much money?
That is a microcosm for the question we must ask about this anime. The most consistent axiom of comedy that comes from all strata of the world is that stuff can be lost in translation, and it's the genre that can potentially age the worst out of all of them. So here's the thought exercise for this video. We have a comedy where the majority of jokes live and die by how they can parody things present in Japanese pop culture from 36 years ago. How does it hold up today when I, a white American in 2025, view it? Well, for starters, it's got way more of a downbeat cynical feel to it compared to other anime of its ilk. Whereas anime like Project A-ko and Prefectural Earth Defense Force parody tropes by ratcheting them all the way up to 11, Assemble inserts parody tropes by bringing them into a much more realistic setting. This is best displayed by the first scene in the anime. We get this high-energy opening reminiscent of a Super Sentai show showing us a cast of characters. But before they get to do the big Sentai pose, we cut to the real world and see our cast members watching it on a store VHS before witnessing another one of the Anti-Demon Seed team members buying porno. The anime's strongest source of comedy is, like Pat Labor, really delving into the logistics of its absurd premise. The contest they hold to find an idol singer/fighter for their team ends up being a total bust because watching people fail in comedic fashion is not a way to hold an audience's attention. By the time they get to Maran, the auditorium is empty and the teamsters are already striking the sets.
すいません。さっき外してしまって。
The Demon Seed crew are also not immune from the budgetary issues the police are also saddled with. Professor Kyosabaru Demon is set up as a smart villain, but really only believes that his plans work because he throws a lot of money at them.
だいたい金などこの天才デモン京三郎にかかればいつでもいくらでも手に入る。わかるかね諸君。この私の発想、それを使いこなす技術、そしてそれを生み出す頭脳を。
So by the time he and his team get wrecked in their first encounter with Maran, Demon Seed completely lacks the funds to repair their robots, forcing them to go into hiding until he can scrounge up more funding. And this has a knock-on effect to the anti-Demon Seed crew. Because Demon Seed has taken a hiatus, they now find themselves having to focus entirely on making Maran into an idol singer because they have to justify their salaries. Salaries that are in the process of getting slashed because a department where most of the employees are just sitting around waiting for a phone call is usually the first on the chopping block.
奴らが完璧なる過去の人になっちまったせいでこの特殊工作課には税金の無駄遣いと市民の非難が集中ついには予算削減ベースアップ見送りおかげさまさまのクーラーストップで
They even poke fun at their own premise. The only reason the idol singer slash fighter plan happened in the first place was because Captain Hattori was drunk when he submitted it. However, a lot of the real humor the show is built on is references. Lots and lots of references. And I think this is where the anime suffers. The Sentai opening at the start is a deliberate parody of the Changeman Super Sentai series, introducing us to a cast of characters that are from Yuki's other manga, Ultimate Superman R. Professor Demon is clearly designed to resemble the evil mad scientist found in classic 60s anime, his henchmen are all cosplaying Titan from Kamen Rider Stronger, and the priceless treasures Demon Seed are planning to heist in the first episode are all characters from Toho sci-fi films and 70s giant robot shows. But the biggest reference out of all of these is a live-action sequence that appears in the middle of both episodes. Starring Kasahara and Maria Kawamura, who voices Maran's idol rival in this anime, is supposed to be a parody of the Lipovitan B energy drink commercials, which were airing all over Japanese TV at the time. These jokes portray who this anime is really for. Not just Japanese otaku, but Japanese otaku who were otaku in 1989. Fellow retro anituber Bennett the Sage has said that the humor of this anime feels like homework, and I'm inclined to agree. I was only able to understand some of these references, and that's only because I'm a nerdlinger who follows other nerdlingers in their blogs. In short, most of these jokes feel very you had to be there. It's like a current day Madoka Magica fan encountering a morning rescue joke. And if you understand what I mean by that, give yourself a hand, you are now old. And on top of everything, the reliance on overly specific references only shows how flimsy the rest of the OVA's premise is. In a way, it gives a meta layer to the second episode's plot being about the Anti-Demon Seeds team's struggle over what to do next. It's clear they've run out of steam because they have to add a lot more friction to Maran becoming an idol. In the first episode, it's shown that she's not that bad of a singer, makes minor mistakes as a dancer, and the only real hurdle she needs to clear is her persistent case of the stage jitters. Become the second episode, she is full on not ready for primetime. Can't sing, can't dance, and accidentally destroys the entire TV set on the show where she's making her grand debut. But that does not end up mattering anyway because it turns out she's the second coming of the I Didn't Do It boy, and people love her for her endearing nervousness and clumsiness. I guess you could say this is a satire on how Japanese culture really prizes moe through helplessness tropes, but I feel like that satirical element could have been a lot sharper. And the only really conflict there is to be had at this point is whether Maran chooses the life of the idol or a career fighting off Demon Seed, because it turns out Demon Seed finally got enough funds to do a heist on the National Mint, all thanks to the Anti-Demon Seed's team's own professor secretly funding them, just like the Americans. But the heist is due to happen at the same time as a big award ceremony, and it all comes down to which path will Maran choose.
僕たちだって男だ。大丈夫だよ。デモンシードぐらい。応援してるからね。
波風マロンさん。
ほらみんなが待ってるマロンちゃん
スターになるんだよ。
She ends up choosing to stop Demon C's goons, but it doesn't really come off as a triumphant or even really funny moment. Mana never seems to agonize over this choice as much as her handlers do, and considering her emotional state never goes beyond polite nervousness, it seems like she could go either way out of obligation. It seems like she chose to fight Demon C because she's better at punching robots than she is at singing, which she does mostly off screen. And that's really where the anime ends, I guess. Looking at assemble inserts, I think it might have been an error on the part of the producers to give this a full 2-volume OVA run. There's really not much there for it to justify its existence. There's comedy here, but it's far more clever than it is funny, and with it being so reference heavy and tied to the time period it came up in, there's little value to be had in the present. I got mild chuckles out of a symbol insert, but that's only because I'm a freakazoid for this time period in anime. Imagine if I wasn't. I'd be far less kind to it than I am right now. And a lot of what a symbol insert does right has been done better in other places, especially Yuki's other project that birthed this anime in the first place. In fact, that's probably the only value this anime really has in the present day, an accompaniment for Patlabor. It's the prototype for Patlabor's own comedic side. From the subdued down-to-earth subversive humor, to the focus on the realistic outcome of a super team trying to face off against a gang of superpower criminals and their mobile suits. A symbol insert is an important piece of anime history, even if it might not be a laugh-out-loud funny one. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video or want to support this channel, please donate to my Patreon. Each dollar can give you early access to my videos as they come out, as well as keep the channel running a bit more smoothly. You can also subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, or just like this video. Either way, you'll be helping me out. That's all for now. See you for the next round of tapes.
Hear, hear! Well said! Long live the doctor! Oh, hooray! Hooray for the doctor!